If you knew you were enough, what would your life look like? What would love look like? This is the Enough Factor broadcast, where we're redefining what makes you enough in life and in love. Now here's your host, Suzette. Hello everybody, it's your life coach and relationship solutionist, Suzette Virnon, and welcome to the Enough Factor podcast. Each week we endeavor to bring you content that will amplify what I've identified as 3 critical factors of your enoughness: your voice, your value, and your vision. By amplifying those 3 critical factors, we know that it will help you to experience love and life in a brand new way. If you are new, a warm Southern girl welcome. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, I have to say I certainly appreciate you. For out of all the podcasts you could be listening to, you are listening to mine. And that's so very special. Today, I've been thinking about people who tell me they really want a great romantic relationship. For some, that's marriage. For others, it's not. And so I decided to kind of dive more deeply into what kind of relationship that you know is the best fit for you, and some ways that you can figure that out. And so I'm titling this episode today, Companionship or Partnership. Companionship or partnership. Now, when I was younger, the only thing that I could conceive of as being proof of a legitimate connection and commitment was marriage. But as you get older and have some life experiences, the world looks a lot different than it did in our earlier days. Anybody out there listening know what I mean? You know, when you're first starting out, you have this ideal of the husband, the 2 children, 1 girl and 1 boy, you know, the house, and the white picket fence. But after growing and experiencing life and going through changes in your career, changes geographically, maybe some of you are not living near family like you used to, changes in health, changes in priority, changes in demand, the demands that life is placing on you. Then you have to really consider, is marriage what I want? Or is it companionship? So I decided to break those things down. A companion is different than a partner, because a companion is someone that accompanies you, that goes with you. You know, someone to go places with you, do things with you. Basically, it's around convenience, around fun, right? That person could be your +1. They know that whenever you have an event at the office, or you're going to the theater, or there's this great concert that you want to go to, they know that you're their person, that you all are going to do that together and have a great time. You have a great time, but there's no other commitment that's required. They go their way, you go yours until the next time, right? But a partnership is a little bit more committed. It requires a deeper commitment. Partnership requires someone to build with. There is an agreement. There are terms that you both abide by. And so it's more of a commitment. It involves a commitment and working together to meet a common outcome, right? That's why marriage is partnership. It does not work well if both parties act in singularity. If I do things without considering how it's going to affect the other person, then it is not a very healthy partnership, right? It does require checking in. It does require consideration. It does require pooling your resources in certain ways. What you do does affect the other person. You have to be considerate of the other person. You're in this thing together. There is not a me versus you. There is a me and you. And so it becomes very difficult when people get into a partnership like marriage and then vie for their independence. If you really respect your independence to the point that you want to have your own money, your own house, your own whatever, then maybe the route for you to great love is companionship. And I really believe that some marriages have ended because people went with the label and the fantasy of being married, right? But did not understand how much it would change their autonomy, their ability to operate in the world as a single entity and not be concerned, not having to be accountable, not having to answer to anybody else for what they do. Now, you can build into the marriage some aspects of independence. Like, for instance, my husband and I have a joint account for our household, but we each have individual accounts. That's our money to do with whatever we please. We don't have to be accountable to the other person for that. That is our money. But when it comes to the household, then yes, we are accountable. We are accountable to each other, and we have the right to ask the other person about an expenditure or transaction that person made that might be out of the norm. We negotiate how the savings account, the joint savings account, is used. Those things are necessary for us to continue to function as a unit and to meet our goals, to build the life together that we want to build. And so, since I'm talking to mainly women over 40, which is my specialization, which is the demographic that I coach, I really want you to really think about whether you are trying to run after some old fantasy that never got fulfilled, and so you think marriage is what you really, really want, or whether you need to update. You need to update and really take a look at how much your life has changed, how much your values have changed, And maybe marriage is not the best fit for you. It doesn't mean you don't want companionship. It doesn't mean that you don't want someone who cares about you, that you're in contact with. But it may mean that marriage, that level of partnership, is just not going to work for the way you have grown and the demands on your life. So I wanted to stop and just kind of talk about that. It might even be something that you think about when it comes to choosing, or vetting the kind of long-term relationship that you really want. Maybe you want a boyfriend. Maybe that's what you want. You want a boyfriend. I had an aunt that never got married, but she was in a committed boyfriend-girlfriend relationship for most of my growing up years. He was a part of her life. He would come over and check on her and fix things, and they would go out and they were exclusive. But he had his house. She had her house. He had his money. She had her money. Right? And so there was no expectation of having to be accountable to the other person. So that may be what you need to consider, right? But then there are those of you who were like me, that I told my husband, at first, marriage was not something that I even thought about. I thought, I've tried it twice and I'm just not good at it. But I do remember when we were dating and I said, marriage is not the goal for me. I don't want to ever get married again. I said, but if we do get married, it has to make sense. It can't be that we just think, well, for us to take it seriously, we need to be married, right? But it had to make sense. Now, I have to admit, I think it made more sense to him because he's the one that proposed. But in the moment that he did propose, a light bulb came on for me. And it really made sense for me in that moment because I realized that the reason why I did not want to get married wasn't because I didn't love marriage. It was because of who I had been married to in the past. And so I was so afraid of having another divorce that I had convinced myself that marriage was not something I was willing to risk. Right? I was like, no, I'm not willing to risk getting married again and having a divorce. But when my husband, my sweet husband that I'm married to now, when he got down on one knee and asked me to marry him, however, the light bulb came on for me. And in that moment, I realized what was holding me back. And I made the decision that I was not going to let my past keep me from this bright and wonderful future with this fantastic man. That when I looked at our relationship and I looked at how it had grown and evolved and I looked at the person that I was becoming and I looked at all of that and how consistently he had been in my life, how sincerely he had been and how he had been that safe place, that nurturing place, that wonderful companion that I had, that companionship that I had been looking for, then it was a no-brainer. Of course I was going to say yes to his proposal. Of course. Because he was the perfect person to build my life with. He was the perfect person to grow old with. He was the perfect person to make a commitment with because I wanted partnership. I wanted something that we could have together. I wanted that. And so it's been almost 8 years, and I'm so happy to say that that was one of the best decisions I've ever made. our getting married made sense, and it's continuing to make sense. We are the proud grandparents to two fantastic little boys. We are the proud uncle and auntie to this absolutely adorable little boy. So it made sense for us to be Grammy and Pop Pop and Uncle Bobby and Aunt Susie. It made sense for our families to come to our home and for us to be able to open up our home. It made sense. It made sense to who we were fundamentally and organically and authentically. It brought integrity to our love for one another and our commitment to one another and our desire to make sure that the other person was cared for if the other one of us transitioned first. That we wanted to leave that other person's life better. We wanted to have them to have the right to make decisions about our health. We wanted to have something to leave for the other person. So it made sense to have a partnership. It made sense to have a say. It made sense to have something on paper. It made sense. But the takeaway for my ladies over 40 who are really looking for great love, and you haven't really sat down to really figure out what that great love is, you just going based on autopilot. You're just going based on what you've always wanted that you never got. You're just going based on, I thought I would have been married by now. But you haven't really thought about, well, wait a minute. Do I have the time? Do I have the bandwidth? Is my life conducive to a partnership? Or is companionship going to give me more of the kind of life that I want to have? You know, is it better for me to go the Stedman Oprah way of having a committed, loving relationship? I remember Oprah and Stedman in an interview were talking to someone and were telling them how their companionship has worked the best for them. They had gone through the whole thing where he proposed, and I don't know how many of you remember, and she was all excited and giddy because she got the ring. But somehow in the unfolding of this, in the wearing it, they came to the conclusion that it was better for their relationship, for the preservation of the love that they had, and what would honor it the most would be to be companions. Committed, yes, but companions versus being married. Because there were certain expectations and requirements of marriage that Oprah was not prepared to give. And they both agreed that if they had gotten married, they'd probably be divorced by now. And so you need to sit with that. You know, I encourage you to sit with that and to really, really weigh out the fantasy of what committed love would be, what great love would be to you, versus the reality. What would be the most nourishing? What would be most honoring of you and what you feel called and purposed to do? What do you feel would be the best fit? So I hope I've broken it down enough and given you something to think about. And I'm very interested to hear what your thoughts are. So make sure you leave comments for me. I would love to read them. And also feel free to follow me. I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. They're my two favorite stomping grounds, at your coach Suzette. And I would just love for you to get in contact with me. I have those ways. in the show notes for you to reach out, because I'd really love for you to really think through it, and I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you feel like having a one-on-one consultation would serve you better in this, please, for all first timers, I offer a complimentary 30-minute consultation. I would love to talk with you and for us to really look at this thing and to really compare it with your goals in life, with your dreams, with what you want to accomplish in your life, with what's most important to you in your life. I would love to be that person that you bounce it off of, okay? So reach out, and until next week, I want you to know, just in case nobody has told you, that you are worthy. You're worth it. You are more than enough. Bye now. You have just listened to the Enough Factor podcast with your host, Suzette Vernon. To get notified of new episodes or to dig deeper into today's topic, become a subscriber. And while you're at it, tell us how we're doing and what topics you're interested in. We appreciate your feedback and your reviews. Until next time, remember, you are worthy, you are worth it, you are enough.